August 26, 1937, A. Paul Ortega was born in Rinconada, New Mexico. Rinconada is basically a suburb, if you will say, of Mescalero. In 1945, he started training as a medicine man, around 8 years old. Later, he spent most of his school-age years in boarding schools and graduated from Albuquerque Indian School. In 1956, my dad went to Chicago, Illinois for government assimilation. 1956 to 1961, my dad served in the Air Force and Marines. In 1960s, he began his music career. And not very many people probably know this part of it, but because my dad was a very humble person, he didn't really talk about himself a whole lot. Of course, unless you asked. So he was taught on the street corner in Chicago by an African American man who we now know as B.B. King. In the early 1960s, he made his first album, The Two Worlds. In the mid-1960s, he did his second album, Three Worlds. In the early 1980s, his third album was done alongside Sharon Birch called The Blessing Ways. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, his fourth album came out, who he paired up with Joanne Shenandoah and created The Loving Ways. In 1982, as Boy was saying, he did The Night of the First Americans and performed at the Kennedy Center. In 1985, he performed for the Pope, St. John Paul II, at the Sun Devil Stadium. In 1988, he moved to Rockville, Maryland to pursue a career in Indian Health Service. In 1988, he met actually Mom much earlier than that, but they finally got married in 1988. In 1991, we moved back to Albuquerque. In 1994, he did a summer cultural program in Israel. In 1995, we moved back to Mescalero. 1996, he was voted in as Mescalero Apache Tribal Council member. In 1996, we all performed at the Olympics in Atlanta. In 1998, he was voted as Mescalero Apache vice president. Later, in 1998, the Mescalero Apache president, then Wendell Chino, passed away suddenly, and Paul stepped in as president. In 1999, my dad was inducted into the Native American Music Hall of Fame, being awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award. In 2001, he did a blessing and presentation of dream catchers to survivors of 9/11. Over the course of Paul's life, he did countless concerts, performances, and blessings all around the world. On May 17th, 2017, he passed away. Throughout the years, Paul's health continued to decline and ultimately went home to what he called the happy hunting ground. I'm not sad. I'm sad because he's not standing here in person. But I believe that he is here in spirit. And thank you. And he'll always be. I I know where he is, and I know that we can call upon him anytime, anywhere, and he'll be there, just like he would have been and was his entire life here on earth. And he was an incredible, incredible man with an incredible amount of strength. And I've had some pretty tough times in my life, like we all have. But definitely the toughest part of my life was taking care of him and watching him decline. So I'm grateful, and I know, and I'm happy that he's home. And my first words to him after he took his final breath was, "You won. You're home. Go enjoy home." Like my brother said, my dad would end every concert with, "You can take a man's money anytime, but when you take a man's time, you take part of his life." And I know that he would say that to all of you here, for thanking you to being a part of his life, for being a part of our lives. So on behalf of my family and I, we thank you, and may God bless you.